special meeting was called by Massillon City Council for the purpose to discuss and possibly pass ordinance number 12/22. Roll call.
Creamer.
Present.
Gray.
Here.
Harwood Smith. Here. Hurricane.
Here.
Lewis.
Present.
Lombardi.
Here.
Sloops.
Here.
Snead.
Here.
And Viola.
Here.
Roll call of 9 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All present and accounted for. Before we move any further, I'd like to call on Councilwoman Harwood Smith.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to take a moment of silence to say a prayer for Ed Greer and his family. Ed was a member of the Massillon Police Department. He was a 4th Ward City Councilman. He was an equal opportunity advisor to the city, and he was also on the zoning appeals and was still currently on Parks and Rec Board. Ed passed away on Friday, and our prayers are with his family. If everyone could just take a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Harwood Smith. Madam Clerk, would you tell us what city officials are here with us tonight?
Safety Service Director Barb Sylvester.
Present.
Law Director Justin Richard.
Present.
Chief Deputy Officer Stephanie Myers.
Present.
Assistant Law Director Edmund Mack.
Present.
Economic Development Director David Malin.
Present.
Police Chief Jason St. Noy.
Present.
Income Tax Budget Director Lori Kavagides-Voron.
Present.
Captain Myers of the Massillon Police Department.
Present.
And is there anyone from administration I missed? That's it, Madam President.
Thank you. We are at the point on the agenda where anyone from the community can speak on any topic that does appear on the agenda, which is just the one ordinance number 178. If you wish to do so, please come forward, state your name, address, and please limit your comments to 4 minutes or less. Seeing none, we'll move into ordinance number 178/2022.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Massillon, Ohio to enter into an enterprise zone agreement for a tax abatement for Mass Trucking Incorporated and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Hurricane.
Thank you, Madam President. Second reading.
Thank you. Ordinance number 178/2022 has received second reading. Meeting adjourned.
Hey, I don't have 3-hour meetings. They're not here. Water drop.
All right, we'll go ahead and begin the committee meeting. We'll let the record show that all 9 voting members of council are present, as well as the president of council. Community development.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I have 4 items that fall under old business. The first is the Planning Commission recommends the approval of the following request. It's a rezoning request. It is parcel 600285, parcel 606737. Both are located on Lincoln Way East. The acreage to be zoned is 0.93 acres. The zone change is from RM-1 multifamily residential to B3 general business district. The purpose of the rezoning is to allow for the operation of a full-service bank. We did have a representative from Consumer National Bank present at the last committee meeting to discuss the intent of the zone request. Does anyone have any additional questions or comments at this time? Okay, so that'll be up for second reading. The public hearing, I just want to state, is scheduled for January 9th at 5:30 p.m. here in council chambers. And this is going to be located across from the old Fisher Foods. The second item is another request for rezoning. It is also approved by the City Planning Commission. Parcel number 100000012, parcel 100000013, parcel 619349, parcel 604626, parcel 685875, parcel 605876. All of these are located on Lincoln Way East. The acreage to be rezoned is 1.82 acres. The zone request is from RM-1 multifamily residential to B3 general business district. And the purpose of the rezoning is to allow for motor fuel retail convenience. As stated previously, we had a representative here at the last committee meeting. The intent is a get-go cafe and market for this location. Public hearing is scheduled for January 9th at 5:30. Does anyone have any questions regarding this zone request? Okay. My third request is another zoning request that is up for second reading at the next council meeting. It was also approved by the City Planning Commission. Zone change from O-1 office to R1-1 one-family residential. The purpose of the rezoning is to allow for new residential construction. It is parcel 609331. The acreage to be rezoned is 0.178. It is going to be in the area across from Home Appliance, and it's for Habitat for Humanity wishes to place a new residential home there. Any questions from council regarding this request? Okay, the public hearing also is going to be scheduled for January 9th at 5:30 p.m. And my last piece is a rezoning request, which the City Planning Commission voted to deny the following request. It is parcel number 680121 and parcel 680731. Both are located at 1900 Wells Road Northeast. The acreage to be rezoned is 1.939 acres. The zone changes from R-3 one-family residential to B-3 general business district. The purpose of the rezoning is to allow for commercial development. And we did hear from a representative from the church regarding this zone request. Does any council members have any questions regarding this request? Mr. Lewis.
So unlike the other three, this one is the planning commission to deny it.
That is correct.
So, but in all four cases, our vote would be to uphold the planning commission or to overturn the planning commission.
It is to, the purpose is to, the City Planning Commission voted to deny the following request, but this is a rezoning request.
So, okay, so we would, okay. That's
So
fine.
this is, yes, for us to either,
Yes to approve or no to not.
correct. questions? The public hearing, Diane and I worked on a date, is set for January 30th at 5:30 p.m. here in council chambers. Does anyone have anything else? Mr. Gray?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Kramer. I do have a question on a previous piece of legislation regarding the parcel across from Home Depot. I know we had a representative from Habitat for Humanity was here.
Home
Not Home
Appliance.
Depot, I'm sorry, Home Appliance.
Correct.
Did he say if there were other residential, if there, the other, like adjoining parcels were also residential? I mean, there are actually homes on that property, do you know?
He did mention there was another home, Habitat for Humanity. He said 2 parcels down. So I'm thinking, looking at the map that we got, this request is on 723. I understood that 725 was a previous.
Okay.
Is that Habitat for
And
Humanity?
perhaps 724 might be vacant? Or,
I can't answer that. I don't know if someone, Dave Maley, can answer that. He does not know.
Is this area where, so like across from Home Pines, would this be like there's a house, an empty lot, and then
I think
like
it
a
is.
parking lot for the church? Is what I'm guessing is the lot that they're talking about.
Any other questions?
thank you.
All right, that's all I have for community development, Mr. Lewis.
Economic development.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. There are no new pieces of legislation. There are 2 old pieces. The first is the one that we gave second reading to at a special meeting a little bit ago, is the enterprise zone agreement for mass trucking. Are there any questions from members of council regarding that legislation request? Mr. Maley is here if there are any questions. The second piece of old business is the Economic Development Inducement Grant for Grove Mental Health and Wellness, located at 141 First Street Northeast. The business owner, Cyrus Assar, has requested funds for build-out, equipment, etc. This is an economic development grant in the amount of $7,000. Are there any questions in this matter? All right, both of these will be on the agenda for third read next Monday, Mr. Lewis. That's all for economic development.
Health, welfare,
I have nothing this evening. Thank you.
Parks and Rec,
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
police and fire.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I have 2 pieces. One's an old piece of legislation and one's new. Old business first. We have the legislation for the Axon contract for the police department for body cams, dash cams, and tasers. That'll be up for second reading on Monday. And are there any questions on this? On Monday, I will be asking to suspend the rules on this to bring it forward for a vote because it is time sensitive. The prices will change at the beginning of the year, so we got to get the contract signed ASAP. On to new business. We have a request for legislation to enact section 149.02 age requirements under chapter 149 Police Department and amending section 151.02 age requirements under chapter 151 Fire Department of the codified ordinances of the city of Massillon, Ohio, per attachment A. And this is to improve and assist in recruitment and hiring of qualified individuals to the city of Massillon safety forces. What they're proposing that we do is raise the age, the minimum or the maximum hiring age to the age of 40. If anybody has any questions, I can have Mrs. Sylvester come up and address those. Mr. Gray,
What is the current maximum age?
I believe it's 35. Mr. Slutz, did you?
No,
Okay.
thank you. I was just agreeing it was 35.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Mrs. Sylvester, did you have anything you wanted to add to this? I know I kind of breezed through it.
Good evening. I think you did a good job with it. But I just wanted to make the one clarification. It is 35 right now for our police department, but it's actually 36 for our fire department. So you'll see that if you do the research into the ordinance that we're looking to amend right now. So that's there. And again, I just, want to say that, we wanted to bring this forward to council. I also want to give credit to our law department because they did do a lot of research with this for us. So, we're just trying to do everything we can for the city to, recruit good qualified safety personnel. So, and I also wanted to let council know that, we did also consult with our chief of police and our fire chief, and they both feel that it's a good thing for our city, that it is something that will definitely help us to find more people that are looking to pursue careers in the safety forces.
Thank you, Mrs. Sylvester. Are there any questions for Mrs. Sylvester? Mr. Gregg?
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. Just out of curiosity, are we seeing many applicants in that age group between 35 and 40?
We don't, because we don't allow it. When we make the posting
Oh,
for the testing, it clearly states in there.
Okay.
So that nobody would even apply
So
or
we don't know.
they wouldn't take the civil service test because, again, the qualifications they have to have listed.
okay. So we're not sure what the interest is for that age group.
We're not. We do know other cities are doing that, and also it's this last contract renewals. It's in the collective bargaining agreements that we do accept lateral transfers now as well. So, that could bring some people into our force that, maybe, are over that age, but are still, active, good qualified officers.
So that's my next question. If somebody's, does this pertain to just brand new officers or fire personnel, or, in other words, if somebody has been active at another agency and they're say they're 37, under current legislation, can they transfer or change to us? Or does it have to be, does it pertain just to somebody new?
It does have to do with the original appointment then, but now they would still be able to do the laterals through that as well, because we don't have a requirement then.
Okay.
For
So
that.
this is
We have a
only-
requirement now that extends it out.
This is only regarding somebody that's never been a police officer or fire person.
Well, we do have the lateral transfers now as well, that they do still have to go through the civil service testing and all of that to come into our agencies.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Sylvester. I'll be sending this and moving it through the committee and hopefully get it on Monday's agenda. Thank you.
Public utilities,
No new or old business tonight.
rules and courts.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Yes, I have nothing new. I do have a couple pieces of existing business. Let me find them here quickly. First piece is ordinance number 166, 2022, an ordinance amending section 2E, occupational list of class titles of ordinance number 127-1997, 845 Community Development Planning Department to increase class grade pay schedule for Economic Development Director from 22 SUUN to class grade 26 SUUN. This was given second reading at our last meeting. I intend to bring it forward for vote in our next meeting. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Next piece is ordinance number 167, 2022. An ordinance amending chapter 165 of the codified ordinances of the city of Massillon, Ohio by enacting section 165.01 to require that employees of the city reside within Stark County or any adjacent county. This was given second reading at our last meeting as well, and I'll be bringing this forward as well. Any questions
didn't hear from Streets and Highways, thank you.
Finance. The first piece we have here is police repair legislation appropriate and unappropriate balance of the police pension fund to the following accounts: $33,354.76 to the police pension, and this is the pay for pensions through the end of the year. Are there any questions or discussion this evening? All right, we have a couple of reductions here. Please prepare an ordinance to reduce appropriation in the fire pension fund by $94,612.79, and that is to zero it out by the end of the year. Questions?
Mr. Lewis, I'm sorry. I do have a question.
Yes.
Can you, just for the record, can you explain what zeroing out means? What happens to those
So what it
dollars?
is when, at the end of the year, we cannot have a balance left in an appropriate line item, so we are zeroing it out. It'll be then replaced in the 2023 budget.
So it goes back to the general fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Fair?
The amount that was going to be transferred would, yes, that we didn't need.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's an accounting practice that we have to do.
Right.
Please prepare an ordinance to reduce the appropriations in the municipal road fund by $141,000 for hills and dales. Again, it zeroes it out, and then it will be replaced. Next one, please prepare legislation authorizing the city of Massillon to enter an agreement with Jackson Township, Warren Township, Perry Township, City of Mount Village of Brewster, Village of Beach City, Village of Hills and Dales, Village of Navarre, Village of Wilmot for transportation of prisoners to and from the Stark County Jail and Massillon Municipal Court, and authorizing the auditor of the city of Massillon how to deposit said funds into transport fees, general and prisoner transport fee replacement capital costs. They are requesting an emergency in this bill out for county execution of agreements. We do this on a regular basis. Essentially, everything less than applicable does come to our courts. We do have to transport people between court and the county jail, and this is the way that we recoup that cost. Any questions or discussion this evening? We have some transfers tonight as well. For the administration, they want to reduce their workers' comp by $8,500, placing in arbitrator services and contracts to realign the budget. Any discussion? Police department reduced salary by $30,100, police comp by $16,000, disability and pension by $5,100, and put a total of $51,200 into police overtime paid. Income tax, salary and income tax staff, reduction by $8,000, placing into refunds, and this realign budget has sufficient funds for expenses related to income tax refunds. WIC, reduction of $400 from travel, $445 in supplies, $500 in workers' comp, and that placed $1,220 in the salary and $125 into PERS, covering the end of the year personnel items. is that just a miscalculation in budgeting, or was there an unexpected cost? Just curious.
Stephanie and I think that it had to do with their raises at one time through the course.
We need you at the mic, please.
Okay.
Sorry.
I tried to use my cheerleader voice, but I guess it didn't work. Oh, that's giving me a cover. Stephanie and I believe that it had to do with the calculation of some of their increases through the course of the year, so it threw it off a little bit.
The next one is the American Rescue Plan expenses reduced by $2,780,000 and placement in revenue loss expenses $2,780,000. Realign the budget to pay ARPA revenue loss expenses through budget year. I'm sure someone's going to have a question.
Do you want me to come up?
Yeah, please.
Can I come all the way up or?
You're fine.
So originally, we just received guidance from the state auditor that all American Rescue Plan money should be paid out of the 1221 fund. We were under the impression that if it was lost revenue used for general government purposes, we would move it to the general fund to use it because the 1221 fund was restricted in the use you could use it for. But they've given us guidance that no, it should all stay in the 1221. We'll have these two separate accounts. One is lost revenue, which can be used for anything. One will be restricted, that they have their list of what can be used for. This is just to clean this up so we can get money in that account, close any PO in the general fund, get the new ones open in this fund, and at the end of this year, everything will be out of the 1221 that we'll pay out of there, and when we do the into 23, there'll be no money in the general fund's carryover that's ARPA money anymore. It'll all be in the 1221. So we kind of just got that guidance, so we're going to get that all cleaned up.
That'll
Does that
actually
make
make
sense?
sense. So
Yes.
you see our carryover,
It'll be your true carryover.
it won't be ARPA fund as well.
No.
Very, that's good. That makes sense. And just so if everybody's not aware, when we received ARPA funding, there was a portion of it that we were able to allocate to lost revenue. And what that means is that due to decreased business or whatever else is going on in our community, there's a fiscal impact on the community as such. So we were able to use some of that money to give us a wider discretion of use. But you can only go percentage or a portion.
Well, originally it was a percentage, and then in April of this year, they came out that you could take up to 10 million. So our auditor said take the whole 10 million, but this 2.78 is the percentage we calculated before we knew that. So just to keep it clean, I used that number.
Yep.
Mr. Lewis, so we're taking the 2.78 million out of the general fund.
No, this is just all sitting in the ARPA fund. We're just moving it from the restricted expense account into a new expense account for lost revenue.
So that balance is still going to show up in the ending balance on our statement of cash.
No, I'm gonna get it all cleaned up this year. We're gonna make corrections to get it out of the general fund.
To be clear, because for what he's asking
Oh,
is, when you look at our cash position, but that's 11 under general fund, the ending balance is 5.7 million. But that does not reflect this 2.7 right now because it's in a 1201.
well, no, right now there is 2.7 in the general fund. Until I can get this moved over, I can't close all my POs in the general fund and clean all that up.
So then the ending balance would drop to 3 million.
Yes.
But we're transferring it from a 1221 to another 1221.
Correct. This is just a budget transfer.
And then eventually we're going to take
And
it out.
eventually the correction is gonna be made. The auditor said I can just get it out of the general fund. Like basically we did the transfer, we will just correct that transfer. Is that not making sense?
Okay. So there's $2.7 million sitting in our general fund at some point is going to be transferred out and be placed into this American Rescue Plan.
Yes.
And that's going to have to come to council, I'm assuming.
Well, it's gonna be, they said, the auditor said I can do a correction, because you had approved in the budget to transfer that money, and we're going to just, reverse the transfer.
And you're going to place it into which one? The plan
12.
expenses or the loss expenses?
It'll go back into the there was a transfer out in the ARPA fund and a transfer in the general fund. So it'll go back into the transfer out account in the ARPA fund.
I see Lori, but comments. Yeah.
Well, I have to confer with my partner.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've already spent some in the general fund, but it's all gonna get corrected. And it's all gonna show coming out of the 1221 fund, once we can get all the corrections made. What, next year's? Yeah.
If the budget year over year, 2 and 1100, it's already, the 2.7 million is already out. Because we could count that as revenue from last year, but not for this year because it didn't come in. So if you've looked at the year over year, it's about 2.7 million that's out already between 22 and 23.
And then general fund. Mr. Lombardi?
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. So is this going to impact our bottom line or not? When I'm looking at the statement of cash, and I see that 5.7. Is it
Yes,
going to
because
change
the
to
2.7 has already been transferred in this year, and it's going to go back to the 1221 before the end of the year.
So we will drop to 3 million at the end of the year.
Right, but there still was projected to be a carryover for this year to drop into it for the beginning of 23. Like, our estimate is, at the beginning of 23, the carryover will be about 6 million, and it will not include the 2.7.
Yes.
Is it possible to have the auditor here before we vote on this?
This isn't a vote, this is a signature.
This is just a signature.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, technically, the only thing that's in front of us now is they're taking it from an account that's 4.599 million and moving to 2.78 million. That's all they're doing. To provide additional information saying that there will also be, that's in the 1221. In addition to that, we'll see a 2.7 reduction in the general fund, which is ARPA funds. And it will be going into here.
Yeah.
But none of this in here will go up by 2.7.
No,
So we're transferring before we see it happen here.
correct.
I follow you. The only thing that I'm tripping up on is that I don't have to approve you taking it back out of the general and putting it into 1221. That seems a little weird to me.
I mean,
I disagree with what
I
you're doing.
can put legislation through, but the auditor said I could just correct,
Kind of.
reverse the transfer, but if you would prefer it to be.
Yeah. I have no problem with this piece right here. I think Jane can call me Mark.
Okay. Sure.
Because that just seems a little bit wonky. All right. Thank you.
All right.
The treasurer wants to reduce servicing contracts by $1,000, placing supplies, materials, postage. 3 on budget, pay for expenses during the year. Parks and Rec, reducing utilities by $15,000, revenue sharing by $15,000, and placing the servicing contracts and supplies beyond the budget through the end of the year. Legend, reduce workers' comp by $5,500, utilities by $400, placing it into capital equipment and bank charges. And fire, reduction of funeral expenses by $500, EMS billing by $4,500, gas and oil, including the gas and oil, $5,000 total. Also reducing travel by $3,000, placing it into overtime. And that will be evening. The first would be the appropriation of the $250,000 related to the demolition of property that was the former home of Howard's Tire and Garage. Are there any questions or discussion this evening? Mr. Gray.
Just correction, 225,000.
No other questions or discussion? I know that last week we had many questions related to the appropriateness of the city agreeing to tear down the property. I know a key point was liability. If the city is paying for the tear down, essentially going out to bid to select the company that does do the tear down, then do we expose ourselves to any liability? Another issue that I've been wrestling with personally is this could also potentially be perceived as the city improving a property for a property owner, in which the property owner would benefit from the improvement made, which becomes also a concern to me, because then other property owners could start to make the argument of, why aren't you improving my property so that I can have a better deal? So I didn't know if there was any other discussions. Will be coming up for, I believe, second read on Monday. Mr. Hurricane.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I have a couple questions as well. From the conversation we had last weekend, and Mr. Maley can correct me if I'm wrong, it is my understanding that we are not acquiring title to the property, nor are we assessing the property through a tax lien or some type of assessment to recoup the funds that the city is outlaying for the demo. So I guess my question is, if both of those scenarios are true, what exactly are we getting out of this?
We can have Mr. Mann come forward if we'd like to, but I believe the answer is they tore down the tear down of an unsafe property, is what I understand. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that, Mr. Maley? You might as well come on, Mr. Maley. Because my follow-up thought is, in your concern in working with the property owner and the city, is that one potential exposure would be if the property owner were to ever walk away and we find ourselves in a health and safety risk, we'd have to tear down the property, lose the grant, and have to put a lien on the property. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, could you kind of restate?
If we did not do this, and for some reason the property owner just walked away from the property, we could find ourselves in a position where we have to tear it down and put a lien against the property
That's exactly true.
and lose the grant.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're telling me that they only have 50 grand to put towards this now. So I've had discussions with them about trying to pay for it and then I've had these discussions with them, the auditor, about seeing if they would be willing to put money, 225 into an account, and then we use that so that we could use any city money. They said they only had $50,000. So in essence, if we didn't have to use this grant, we would have, I mean, we've got demo orders on it now. It's a very unsafe structure, to be honest with you. Steve Kuhn has equipment down there that's kind of holding the building up at his own expense. We would have to have him tear it down. They could just say, walk away from the property, not do it, and then we would be responsible for the two. We have bids. We anticipate it's going to cost about $160,000 to take both buildings down. So we would have to come up and ask the council for $160,000 to take it down, and then assess the taxes. There's no guarantee that the property owner may just walk away and not pay the taxes. And who knows what we may get some, we may not get nothing. It's hard to say. And we would lose the grant. I mean, it's not a very good situation, but it is what it is. The money is like a one-time deal from the state for demolition. That they allocated $150 million across the state, and we were fortunate enough to put in and get 100% reimbursement. Like I told you last week, $500,000 was guaranteed each county at 100%, and we were able to get
What is the perceived value of the property once the building is torn down? Is there any conversation you have?
I really don't know what the perceived value of a vacant lot would be. I would have to get an appraised value of some sort, that what it would be.
Has the property owner entertained any discussion of relinquishing the property to the city?
No.
No, he's not entertained it, or it hasn't even been in front of him.
Well, there's been some discussion about him selling it to somebody else, but not with the city, no.
But he can't sell it to the building down. And he doesn't have enough money to take the building down. So we're improving the property for him so that he can have a financial windfall for a property that was not properly maintained.
I understand there's a lot of moving parts we're dealing with here in this situation. The main concern for the city was that we have an unsafe structure that, ultimately, if there was a fire in that building today, the fire department would not go in. They would not go in the building, and you may have that little side of that tunnel. I mean, if there's a fire right now, that whole area would burn, arteries, et cetera. I think that's what we have to really look at. First and foremost is we have a very unsafe structure that we need to get taken down. And we're in the process of doing that. There's a possibility that we haven't looked into that we could assess. But the problem is it's not costing us anything to take it down if we get reimbursed. So, I don't even know what to assess.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Maley, how much grant funds did the city get from this allocation from the state in total?
Well, it's a reimbursement, so we're allocated up to $225,000. We may not use it.
Now, that's not project specific to this, correct?
It's project specific to this.
So you made an application to a pot of money for this specific project.
It's specific.
So that can't be used for anywhere else throughout the city.
I wish you could.
But the difference can't be, right? It's 160 here and there's, how much did you say?
2 quarters.
So-
2 quarters total of what we got for reimbursement.
So the remainder then is going to go for other demos throughout the city.
No, that money will get us, the state will just determine what they want to do with that money. It's not specific, we got $225,000 for that specific demolition.
Okay. Thank you.
So the money will probably go back into a pot, but we'll try to reallocate it throughout the state.
Councilman Green?
So the owner has $50,000,
Supposedly.
and you have estimates of $160,000 for this demolition. Like what Mr. Lewis said, it's a reimbursement grant. So if the owner puts up the $50,000, we make up the difference of $110,000 and get reimbursed for the $110,000. Is that a possibility? Have we looked at that? I understand we received $225,000, but taking down that building like we stated, we may find ourselves having some trouble with the adjacent building, correct?
Well, you're talking about Marguerite?
Yes.
I
So,
Whatever issues we have with Marguerite, it's not going to be on the city, it's going to be on the property owner. Whatever problems there are with that building, it's going to be on the property owner, it's not the city. Only we're responsible for is the demolition of getting the buildings down. That's what we'll get reimbursed for. We're not going to get reimbursed for fixing Marguerite's building.
so have we pursued that path of having the owner put up the $50,000 and we make up the difference?
Well, I guess when you say put up,
This is their building. Yes, we received this grant.
well, they would have to, ultimately, the city's doing this. The city, it's coming from city funds, the city will be reimbursed. If we went and asked the building owner to say, hey, we want $50,000 to do this, and they say no, what do we do then? It's one fund, it's coming out of city funds. If the Rubens want to put $50,000 into a fund, there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of moving parts here, and
But if I'm understanding correctly, once this building is down,
correct.
that parcel, they have a possible person
said, you can also say that this, we're helping them to develop the property, hopefully the property get redeveloped, and we'll have more income down the road. So they're not asking us, hopefully, for any kind of time to develop help at this point. I don't disagree with a lot of questions. I've been around this thing for months, talking with them, talking with a lot of different people on it.
Mr. Ernest?
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Mayor, I got one more question. Do you know what the development plans are? Can you speak to that? Can you give me something here to make this powerful?
I wish it did. I don't.
You just know that he intends to sell to somebody to do
Well,
something.
I've had some limited knowledge as far as that there will be a partnership or somebody purchasing it to redevelop it. But they won't tell me anything about what it is.
I mean, if there was a real persuasive answer to some of this stuff, it might
No, I agree.
go a little further I know for my sake, but it's just kind of
I'll be honest with you, I had lengthy conversations about what we're discussing right here tonight, saying, I don't really feel comfortable on the council asking for it. But, ultimately, I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place on what we're going to do to get these buildings down.
Mr. Sneed?
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I'm going to look at the past here for a moment. Maybe we can invoke our historian here. If I remember correctly, there used to be another building on the other side of Howard Steiger before that parking lot was put, correct?
That would have been back in the 90s.
Right. So, who took that building down?
I can't answer that.
Well, here's my point. If we took that building down as a city to make room for the parking lot, which is now city property, correct? It's private property.
That's private property.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of the liabilities here. So I would be interested to know who took that building down, if that was a private venture or city involved.
Wasn't it phase 1 or something?
You'd have to go back a couple decades in the archives to look. I think it was Lincoln Center phase, probably 1 at the time. You had the whole row of those downtown buildings that records would show if the developer purchased those buildings and then, I'm inclined to think that that's more than likely how it happened, that these buildings were sold to a developer who undertook all that demolition themselves.
So I am going way back in my memory banks, but my barber was in that road. And I remember he didn't want to sell, and he got forced out.
You had laid back records too.
Yeah, so I think that there was a little bit of government taking over property type of deal there. In order, because the business can't necessarily go.
Was laid back in that building? It wasn't in 129, because when we were in that building.
Laid back is on the end where it's still standing.
See, I thought that was torn down.
The 129 is where laid back was, because they had a lot of stuff still in there.
Yeah, laid back was very good. So what I mean by that though is, so in that case, someone took possession. Well, my memory is correct. I mean, you're talking like I was 9 getting my hair cut, listening to Dawson. Right? So they would have taken possession, and then the city would have gotten the windfall of the development. And that's what we're talking about here. In this situation, the city's not taking possession of the property, so we're not getting a windfall of development. We're just spending money so that someone else can develop it and get the windfall. I mean, that would be like any one of us going and investing in our neighbor's property so that he can go sell it. I tell him no.
The answer to Mr. Sneed's question is there are boxes and files going back to the period up in the attic in the administration annex building. I mean, if somebody wanted to look to see how that went, you could find that easily.
But it's all probably done privately, right? The city taking it?
Well, the city would have records of
Yeah.
property transfers and things like that, so you know, whether either in engineering or in the storage here, but there's an answer somewhere to who did what.
I don't know how many buildings, but there's a parcel that is right next to 129, which is the last building there. That's what Ruben's on that parcel too. There's a small parcel. I can go to them, but I think that this fund, they'll probably just kind of play hardball, we'll see where we're at.
I guess where I'm at, the bottom line is, while I frequent their store and I love their products, but at the end of the day, it seems like they have a property that they can't sell. Because who wants to buy it and have a $160,000 to $170,000 bill before you can do anything? And then we as the city say, oh, well, we'll go ahead and we're spending that. Yeah, sure, we're getting reimbursed. It's no cost to us. What's that? And then they get to sell it and they take the $50,000 they have in their name and now they have $250,000 because they sold a downtown commercial property to do well. So they get, they get the financial windfall, but none of the burden of having to find someone to tear it down, none of the burden of having to buy any money. Nope, they just sit there and let the city do it and then cash it. That's a problem.
Well, I mean, we have a couple things. We have a very unsafe structure.
That's not lost on me. I'm very concerned about that, and what if something happens, then all of a sudden we look like.
We also have a business owner in the city of Massillon who's been in business for a long time. And Howard Garage, he's moved this facility next door here. And obviously he has the need, dress shop. So, and we had the opportunity to get funding to help him. That was kind of a one-time deal. Now, that's kind of where we're at with all this. I kind of try to pull the strings on this, but I really don't know where to go with it. Whether you guys want to put some type of caveat for the funding. And there's other things going on that I don't really want to discuss in public with regards to that.
Anybody else have any questions or discussion this evening? All right, let us digest it a little longer. We'll be up for reading.
Just FYI, we did get the bids. The survey came back. We got quotes. I think we're coming in today for the survey of the property. We've got a couple quotes. I think they're both under, so far we got two, I think they're both under 10 grand for remediation of the property. So that's going to be a minimal amount. And we're going to move forward and try to get that done as soon as possible.
All right, the last piece I have is for Lori Patagisi Foreman to come up and have our final conversation about the budget.
Another one is the police department for the tasers.
Oh, well, that'll follow along with Mr. Lombardi.
Okay.
Good evening, council.
Yes, does anybody have any questions for Lori this evening? No? Everybody is good to go moving forward with